Welcome to Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view, from the Casablanca studio in Golden, Colorado. Hosted by Art Carlson. At 4'6", liberals fear him, and conservatives love him. He's definitely a giant among men. Now here's your host, Art Carlson.
Welcome to another episode of Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view, and my gracious host, Lloyd Mendenhall, all the way from Muskogee, Oklahoma. Welcome, Lloyd. Welcome to another great show. We've got a lot to talk about. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's one of them days I'm just tired and dragging, but it's because I got up a ridiculously early hour today.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's, Back from the Sky is in. Welcome to the show. All right, so
why am I
let's jump into it. We had an incursion in the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf where the Iranian Navy detained 2 British oil tankers. So that's another state of contention for the United States and the rest of the world. So that'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. What say you, sir?
Well, I was watching a little bit of it. If you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm sitting here trying to get, oh, there we go. For some reason, I couldn't find it up on your front page so I could see what was going on. But anyways, so I couldn't keep up with the chat. But yeah, I was watching that. It's like, I think their idea was to divide the, they said, well, because we didn't support the, we didn't support the Iran nuclear deal.
Right.
They were trying to divide us between them and say, this is the U.S.'s fault. If you'd have just done it our way, we wouldn't be doing this.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's going to backfire. I think it's already backfiring.
I think it will. I think what it does is it puts their nation in a bad light, saying that, hey, we don't respect international laws on the sea, so we're going to have our temper tantrum, and we're going to say, screw you, we're going to take over these ships. And they keep this up, it's going to escalate into a conflict that will not end well for the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Right. So, Back from the Sky said it's hard to hear you. I'm not sure if he's talking about me or you.
I will get my mic real close. And what I've got, let's see. Turn that off. And
but then he said he'd be back in a few, so
okay. All right. So, I see. How about I raise the master? How's that? Does that sound better?
There you go. That's yeah. That's much better. Much better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you had the master volume down too low, so.
Yeah, I just had it down a little bit because people were complaining that I was booming. So.
Right.
So and not too long ago we shot down an Iranian drone. Turns out it was just Kelly Green's karma that got shot down. So.
Oh well, yeah, that was, and it probably is still flying. That's a sad thing. it's like those karmas fall out of the sky and they still fly.
Yep.
You know, I mean, they're like karmas are like the cockroach of the drone world.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
just can't get rid of them.
Right. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
I I bet anything that their drone is probably like the parrot disco. That's probably what they use.
probably, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because you know, I was listening to something today, and they were talking about, well, of course, the guy that was on there was speaking on Fox News today. Was you know, it was somebody a former somebody with Obama, blah blah blah, and
Right.
he was talking about, yeah, you know, we got out of this, and we were doing it. We needed a nuclear deal to keep them from getting the bomb. You know something? He apparently isn't too bright because they were going to get it. They'll get it when they want it, you know, and
Right.
if they don't already have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that deal, all and as they said, all that deal did was give them enough money so they could now start doing the stuff that they are doing, you know,
Well, a lot of that
to buy.
money is going to the into the hands of Hezbollah and
Yeah,
yeah, the
terrorist
terrorist
groups.
group. So it
Yeah,
was like the
Al Qaeda and
dumbest
Hezbollah,
thing
and
I'd ever heard when he said he was going to do that. It,
yeah,
it's kind of like giving a pyromaniac, here's some money, go buy some matches.
yeah, pretty much. And
Yeah.
you know, and the sad thing is I guess in some ways I look at it, and, you know, maybe he was a little too young to have been president because maybe he doesn't really remember all the things that went on uh, during that time period, you know.
Right.
So
He was, I think he was born, let's see, he was probably born after the Cuban Missile Crisis and probably has no clue what that whole thing was about. I'm watching a documentary on the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's on the Time Ghost channel where they do some
right, right,
really good history stuff there. And unfortunately, they're not being monetized. And so they got to use
right,
Patreon for people to
yeah,
subscribe
yeah,
to their channel and to, a subscription to Patreon to fund their channel. And they do some really good stuff. Right now, I'm watching World War II, and that is amazing. I'm learning so much about the war because it breaks it down into little pieces where,
right.
in high school and junior high, we were just given, a big blob. Okay, this happened there, and these guys, they
Yeah,
break it down day by day, which
by day. Yeah, yeah.
mm-hmm.
Some uh, housekeeping real quick.
Okay.
Nature's Beauty Sonia's here.
Oh, Sonia,
Thomas
welcome to the
O'Sullivan
show, and Tomas,
and
welcome.
and yeah, and
Carlos from the
Carlos is
sky.
back. Yeah, he had a question. He says, "Isn't don't you find it curious that ISIS is a American name for a Muslim terrorist group?" Uh, Loosely translated, I don't know. ISIS stands for Islamic State in
Yeah.
Lebanon and Syria.
Hmm.
You know, so
And I
or in
believe
Iran
it's
and Syria,
Egyptian
Iraq and
god
Syria.
too,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. ISIS was an Egyptian goddess. So,
Yeah.
but it actually the original name was ISIL, which is
Yeah.
Islamic State.
State of the Arab Levant.
Yeah, Iran, Syria, and Leviathan, which is a
Okay.
caliphate in that area.
Right.
And we changed it to ISIS because we didn't want to recognize the Leviathan Caliphate.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's an American name. But, you know, we called the Nazis Nazis, but the German name was National Socialist, and
Yep.
the translation, just because we gave it an American name doesn't mean
Hmm.
uh, the funny part, it stands for something in English. So who named the U.S.? Who named it? U.S. or Muslim? Uh, does it really matter? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true.
I mean, who gave it a name?
Mm-hmm.
The Muslims gave it the name of actually ISIS themselves called it ISIL, and we just Islamic State in Iraq and Syria is what ISIS stood
Right.
for. To us, they called it Islamic State in Leviathan, which was
Mm.
ISIL. So,
Right.
but that ISIS is kind of
A nice way
uh,
of saying.
yeah. Well, they're
It's
just not
short
really.
and it's easier to remember.
Well, yeah, it's just an abbreviation,
Yeah.
anyways, and
Right.
but it's
Mm-hmm.
let's see. The only reason I ask is sometimes I don't buy that there's many terrorist groups out there that claim to be.
Right. That's
Trust me,
true.
I'm pro-U.S. Well, okay. Uh, I've got a simple question to that. There's only a few terrorist groups. Some are loosely affiliated with others, but the money's all coming from numerous different main places, and most of those are coming. Most of that money's coming out of Iran
Mm-hmm. And
and
some of
some
it
of the
is
other
coming
Middle
from
Eastern,
Saudi Arabia as well.
Saudi Arabia. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yep. In the Philippines, they have a group called Abu Sayyaf, which is now they're aligned with ISIS now. So uh, who knows? That money that Obama gave to Iran probably ended up in the Philippines to
Right,
help
right.
arm the
Yeah,
Islamic insurgents there.
yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna just. I just this isn't my show. If you want to talk about it, Art, you can, but I won't. I won't answer questions about the tower and conspiracy theories
Oh yeah,
and stuff
no,
like
no,
that. This isn't
we're
this
not
conspiracy.
going
We're
into
discussing politics
politics.
and
Yeah,
world politics and how they affect the United States and U.S.
right.
citizens.
We're
There's a
not going to
couple of
talk
great
about the
channels out there.
Trilateral Commission or the Bilderbergs. We're not going to go into that. That's this is
Yeah,
more uh, fact based, not conspiracy uh,
it's
based
not that
show.
it's
This is
not all related, Carlos. It's just that, and as far as Saudi Arabia allies uh, with the U.S., okay, is it agreeable to us? Not necessarily, but
mm,
it's you know, it it's a buffer. And
mm-hmm,
having been in that part of the world back when we had a real ally there, which is now our enemy,
yeah,
uh, we got to have a buffer. It's you know. Uh, I want to put it this way, and apologize for the language ahead of time. But Saudi Arabia may be an ass, but at least he's our ass.
yeah. And plus, we're helping them out because their common enemy is Iran.
Right.
Because they are, let's see if I get this, they're a different sect of
Their
Islam,
sect, yeah. Uh, they are. Hang on a
Sunni.
second. I could have answered that 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
That's the problem of getting old.
Right.
Uh,
Hmm. So,
all
and
right. I'll
that's
think of
how
it in a minute.
that's worked out. It's ever since the aftermath of World War II, with the start of the Cold War. That's what
Right.
really
Right.
drove us to the Middle East,
Ah.
because with the creation of Israel and
Right.
we had the Soviet Union. They were backing certain groups that were, uh, their proxies. We had our proxies. Uh, Iran was
Yeah.
one of them. Uh, Israel was a main ally there. And then later on,
Right.
Egypt became an ally of ours. And
Yes.
so, uh,
Hello, Chris Hope.
things changed over time. All right,
Yeah.
Chris,
Well,
welcome to the
what you were trying
show.
to think of was uh, the ruling party of, or the ruling family of Saudi Arabia are Sunni, and the uh, the Iranian theocracy is Shiite,
Oh, okay.
and the difference is there used to be four,
Right.
and now it's gone down to two. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they've managed to eradicate the others or integrate them into their own, and it's just a difference of uh, one group follows, and I think that's the Shiite, the son-in-law of Muhammad. Yeah, Muhammad, and he was a stricter. He set up a lot more of the stricter rulings,
Right.
and uh, the the Sunni followed the brother and his chosen people, and the Shiite have, it's like they all read this, like he says the Quran, but it's like we all read the Bible, as Christians, but some of us are Pentecostal, some of us are Presbyterian, some of us are Lutheran, some are Catholic,
Right.
you know, but
Mm-hmm.
and they're narrowed it down to those two, which kind of makes you worry about, uh, when it's down to two out of the
Uh,
originally five, and
right.
then it went down to four, and then in our lifetime there was four, and now there's down to two.
Mm-hmm. All
So
right. So speaking of uh, fascist style groups, let's go into Antifa. They are back in the news. And let's see, there have been more attacks lately. One of them was killed at the ICE jail that he was fighting against. This is in
uh,
BuzzFeed News. A self declared anarchist say no longer stand by as the government to this last week. The man who died after being shot by Washington State Police while tossing a lit object at vehicles and buildings outside an immigration detention center, self identified as anti fascist or Antifa, who was motivated by the recent immigration raids and deportations launched by the federal government. Willem Van Spronson, a musician and carpenter from Vashon Island near Seattle, showed up outside a privately owned detention center for immigration and customs enforcement around 4 a.m. Saturday hours after organized protests at the facility, armed with a rifle, began throwing incendiary devices at vehicles, lighting one car on fire and attempting to burn a building a propane tank, according to Tacoma police.
yeah.
So that's what
Well,
happens when you mess around with law enforcement with incendiary
you th-
devices,
yeah.
and not only that, there was a
Let me show you one thing while you're looking for that.
okay,
I showed it to you, but I wanted to show it to the others. I'm going to put it up on my screen.
all right.
And uh,
Oh yeah,
this pretty much, everyone wants to raid Area 51 to find aliens, but mad at ICE for doing raids to find aliens. You know?
yeah. And then there was
Just makes you wonder sometimes.
yeah, I
What,
agree. And there was
you know?
a journalist, a left-leaning journalist, who was attacked by ISIS, Antifa radicals who hit him with rocks, and I think they were in socks. They pelted this
Right?
guy, and I mean, oh, with the elections coming up next year, I think it's going to get really bad next year. Remember what happened after Trump won the election? How A lot of the violence escalated in the aftermath. And,
Well, that's the whole point.
mhm.
The reason is for that is because uh, yeah, my mind just went blank.
They're not
Oh,
happy with the results of the election.
yeah. I mean, uh, I had a thought, and it's one of them days, Art, that my mind it'll come back.
All right, well, Carlos says Antifa are a bunch of kids that want to make noise and complain, but do nothing themselves to help people they claiming are being discriminated against. It makes them feel good to complain, but in the end, the day of the day, personally, I don't believe they do much. Well, that is true. And a lot of these folks, especially the higher ups in the group, are being paid by George Soros and Tom Steyer and other very wealthy liberals.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. How is it that all these young people can go up there and travel all over the country and have these protests?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
this is the same.
they're being bussed
Go ahead.
in. You know, who's
Yeah,
paying for the bus tickets? These kids can't pay to travel all over the country. Somebody is paying for all of this, and they're
yeah.
shipping them
Sonia
to
says Sonia says the same thing happened in the UK, and it seems we get used to it like an everyday occurrence.
right.
And I think that's where I was going to go. We
Mm,
don't need to get used to it as an everyday occurrence. But
mm,
I will say this. I've watched a couple of these on the videos. There's all over YouTube and in the news, and you can go find them anywhere. Uh,
right.
uh, but I watched this one, and it was very discouraging. I mean, it's bad enough that these kids are out there protesting. They ain't got you know, if their brains were elastic, they couldn't stretch around a sparrow's ankle. But but anyways, you're the comedian. I just
Yeah. Well, you're doing a good
practicing
job.
at it. But anyways, but uh, okay, so they got these anti Antifa people out there. The I don't know, pro Trumpers or whatever you want to
Right.
call them. So they get out there. So they're and this was up in Seattle or someplace, and they're marching. When they really panned the camera around, there was like 40 people, 20 on each side,
Right.
and they were just wandering around the streets like a bunch of thug kids on both sides.
Hmm.
And so they decided that in order to decide who got to stay on the block and who got to go home, they'd have one person step out from each side. Okay. So the conservative group, the pro-American group, they picked the biggest guy in their bunch, and he steps out there to show them how it's made. And the liberals get some little scrawny guy, but he wasn't weak. He was. You could see he'd been, he had a lot of time to work out at the gym. Do
Right.
yoga and whatever else. Drink his pro health Kool-Aid and whatever else they, you know. So they get into a fight and they're doing the little slappy thing. And the sad part is the really sad part was the guy from the pro pro U.S. side or pro America side.
Right.
He got his butt kicked. I mean,
Wow.
and I wrote up there, if you guys are going to pick somebody to support my side, get somebody who can actually do the job, not some
Right.
guy that's had one too many Big Macs.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing. It was
Hmm.
just embarrassing. If you can't back it up, go home and let some of the older guys that know how to do it
Hmm.
take care of these little Antifa snots. So it's just stupidity on both on some of these groups because. But Antifa's just a bunch of kids that, I mean, when you really look at some of what they're doing, they're just street thugs. That's
Yep.
all they are. And they're being
Hmm.
paid for by you know, yeah, like Carlos said, you know, their daddy and mommy's money is paying for it because
Yep.
their daddy and mommy are liberal judges and, you
Yep.
know, bleeding hearts of the conservative movement.
Mm-hmm.
Conservative, God almighty, what did I? The liberal movement. Wow. Bleeding hearts of the conservative movement. I'm sorry.
Well,
Those are the bleeding hearts of the conservatives are the no Trumpers.
right. You touched on a video. I just recently saw a video where there was a conservative group marching with an American flag. They had a Christian cross in the blue part of the flag, and these Antifa idiots are
Right.
they're all complaining. Oh, they're forcing their Christianity on us. No, they're not. They're marching. They got the right to say what they want, just as you have a right to complain about what they're doing. But the way they said it was just so
Yeah.
backwards. And it's like,
It's
if you don't like it, don't, you know, watch it. It's like these people that complain about what's on TV. All they have to do is reach over and flip the switch.
yeah.
It's off.
Well,
You know?
if seeing that flag being carried by people on the other side, if they're if they're upset about that, well, I'm offended, and they're forcing me to they're forcing their black mask on me,
Mm.
their black, bandanas. I don't like black bandanas,
Yep.
and I think I'll file a lawsuit over it,
Mm.
because that's discrimination against those of us that like white bandanas
Mm. And
or
then,
red bandanas. I like red,
yeah.
Don't see them out there wearing red bandanas. Nope, they're all black. I think it's racist
And
against
then
bandanas.
this guy goes out in the street, and then guess what happens there? He gets hit by a truck. And I'm like going, yeah, right on. And it's like, remember when they were blocking freeways and stuff like that? And some people just got fed up that these people are uh, preventing them to get from point A to point B, so screw it, and knock them over. And that's the way I feel. I was going to start
Well,
up a business called Antifa Cow Catchers, where you put this on the front of your car and it just kind of moves them the heck out of the way.
I'm gonna go ahead and read this. I
Okay.
think because I'm a moderator here, I'm gonna go ahead and approve. I don't know if you saw what he put up there, but he's gonna try and fit this all in one comment. But let me show it. He brings up a good point. He says he's going to try and fit this all in one, but we know that Osama bin Laden's exist and Hitler's of the world exist. Isn't it possible somebody in the U.S. can be just as evil? Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not sitting here saying that the right's got the perfect people either. There's people on the far right that are just as bad as the people on the far left, because far right is where you get the National Socialist or the Nazis. The far left is where you get the socialist and communist. And you can have it on both sides. There's people just as evil on both. Evil is not connected. So yeah, power tends to get to the people, and most can handle it, especially politicians. Well, what's the saying? Absolute power corrupts, and
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
absolutely, or something like that. I can't remember. My mind went blank. I used to know that like the back of my hand. The older I get, the less I remember. It just sucks. Yeah, it is human nature. Evil is a real thing, and unfortunately, it's not exclusive to just the left or to
Right.
just the right. On the other hand, from that point of view, going with that, somebody over on the, let's say, they're moderate left, or moderate liberals, if you can be that. You know, they're not bleeding completely. They're just got a scratch of liberalism.
Right.
They probably think we're evil because we're even talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I've answered that question, and I'll let you get on with the next point.
Which leads me to something. You said something about how they view us as evil. And I think about this and I go, well, when did all of this started? You know, where people just stop uh, talking and just say, well, they dismiss us. You're evil. That's it. Nothing to discuss. And it's like, really? How do you get government to work if one side doesn't want to work with the other? It's getting to the point where gridlock is really going to be the uh, the main problem because one side wants either all or nothing, so they're going to bottle up the
Yeah.
inner workings of government, and I think it goes all the way back to education. It's the
It
college professors and teachers who are teaching this kind of behavior is learned, and it reminds me of an episode from uh, Time Ghost, which is another channel that I follow, which puts on World War II, and they were talking about the inhumanity of violence, how that grew out of it. And it's all about the us versus them and the perceived notions about different groups, which are real or imagined, which is very
yeah.
interesting.
And yeah, the violence part, and I read this the other day, and that's why I was going to hit on too. That's why I was trying to go there. Part of the reason it's gotten so mean and so violent lately, and why they're fighting us so bad, and why they've gotten so much nastier than in the past, is because for once we as conservatives are finally starting to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they got this far is because somewhere, I don't know, back after Bill Clinton, probably,
Right.
we suddenly started wringing our hands, and we had in 2000 we had the divided election, the hanging Chad, and all that
Yep.
other silliness, and that was really what it come down to, was the fact that uh, this goes to Al Gore, and the fact that he lost and he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't willing to give it up, and that's when not accepting not accepting a loss became the acceptable,
Right.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes back. You could lay that on the Clintons again, because Bill Clinton told Al, you got this, and you got it made, And that was the whole thing. They really thought they again had it,
Yeah.
because and I'll be honest with you, if they look back, I mean, Bill Clinton is a human. He's not a very nice person,
Yeah.
but as a politician, he was really good at what he did,
Yeah.
and he knew to reach across the aisle. You had Reagan, who knew how to reach across
Right.
and have détente and be able to talk.
Right.
George H.W. He gave in. He capitulated.
Yes,
That
he
was his
did.
problem, and that's why he lost.
Mm-hmm.
Is he made a promise that he wrote a check that his butt couldn't cash.
Yep.
And
Read my lips.
uh,
No new
read my
taxes.
lips, exactly. That's
Mm-hmm.
three worst words any politician has ever said.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
so that's when the Democrats finally knew that we were not going to fight them. Ronald Reagan fought him. He says, "Hey, I'm willing to negotiate. I'm willing to sit down. Let's sit down here, have some jelly beans, and let's talk about it." George H.W. says, "Well, if just read my lips, I don't know that."
He was too much of a nice guy. Just and
he
son
was
the same way.
Well, I supported both of the Bushes up until
so
this
did
last
I.
go around, and I'm sorry, but George H.W. really was he was an intelligent man. I mean, you can't be stupid and fly a fighter jet. It just requires you to have a certain amount of skill, and for him to still be able to do it and do it successfully, that's good. But he's still a goober.
Yeah.
And that came true when he and Clinton became such good buddies.
Yeah.
That's when, and that's where it started. It started with HW capitulating. And once they knew that we were going to capitulate on everything, they just ran with it. Bill Clinton at one point, he realized that the old guard isn't out of the house yet. We haven't got rid of them yet. But as soon as we get rid of them guys like Newt Gingrich and stuff, then we got it made. And that's what happened. All of those guys left or got kicked out or got voted out or whatever, or they did like they normally do. They dig up scandal on them to push them out, And then...
That's what they did with Tom DeLay. They made up some scandal, and then when they right after the investigation and the trial and everything, they were found innocent. And it's like, and that's how the Democrats work. Is the power of personal destruction, and that's why we don't have good candidates running for office on the Republican side anymore. I looked at the last couple elections and I shake my head and I'm like, oh, where are these losers coming from? These, a guy that was running for State House in my district, turns out he had a drug convention back in the early 2000s where he was growing and selling psilocybin mushrooms. Magic mushrooms. Yeah. And we didn't find
it make the grumpy vlogger happy.
And I was gonna run, but as soon as I saw that I was going to be in another primary, and I've done that, and I said, the heck with it, this is yours. And I figured, well, I'll support this guy. And as it got further and further, and I'm like, oh, this guy is a disaster. But he raised a ton of money, which is good, which is way more than the previous candidate that we had, who only raised a few $1,000s, where this guy raised almost $30,000, which is about the standard for a house election. Some house elections were well over $100,000. We even had some Senate races that went over $300,000 for a race. So,
yeah, well, and that's the problem. There are so many things wrong with our political system right now. What we need to do is we need to have term limits. We need to have monetary limits, and we need to cut down on how much we pay them. This shouldn't be a, where they get it for the job for life.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to think of the gentleman from Colorado from 1967, 68, who was a congressman, and he was a Republican. And at that time, because it was when Nixon was running, and
Right.
he was a pretty good conservative. But I used to have something where he sent me a letter when
Right.
I graduated high school from
Oh,
him.
yeah. Let me.
What was his name?
Okay. Let me do my Google real quick.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. But I can remember then that was when there was politicians only need to serve 2 years and they get health benefits for life as well.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing, they do not have to pay for it. When I went into the military, we were told that we would be taken care of for life,
Right.
health care for life, because we put our life on the line for the military, for the U.S. government, and it was free. Okay, that was a good reason to enlist, and a lot of people got drafted and didn't have any choice, and so that was one of those things that, all right, that's an incentive to stay, but
Oh,
the way it is now, you have to pay unless you're either 100% or above 60% service connected, I think, or you make, you're in the
right.
poverty section. Otherwise, you got to pay a percentage. You
Right.
know, you got to pay a percentage on your medicines and all that. But yet, and these are for guys that's they wrote a check that included that was up to and including their own life when they wrote
Right.
that check.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lifetime commitment. We never unswore the oath. We're still
Right.
sworn in to serve this country.
Uh-huh.
And the whole thing is these guys, they serve 2 years and they have better benefits than we'll ever hope to.
Yeah.
Guys that have served 20 years in the military, given half or a
Right.
third of their adult life, to the U.S. serving the U.S. military, getting shot at and or whatever else
Right.
that might come along, and they get something like TRICARE, which is absolutely garbage insurance.
Right.
It's terrible.
Right.
Oh, they can go to the base hospital,
Mm-hmm.
but they're taking they've got so many people to take care of now. It's just like, or we can go to the VA hospital,
Right.
which there again, unless you're disabled, you just
Mm-hmm.
So politicians serving 2 years and getting better benefits than what I do or any other veteran.
Yeah.
That's a crock of crap.
Okay, so I'm looking at this website called Political Graveyard. Are you thinking of Peter Dominic?
Nope.
Okay, J. Edgar Chenoweth.
Now I remember Chenoweth.
Yeah,
that
he
wasn't-
was the 3rd District. He served from 60 to 60. Yeah, he held that seat
It would have
for.
been in Denver.
Oh, in Denver? That would be
Yeah, I mean
District 1. Yeah, that's William
Yeah.
B. Chenoweth, and he was defeated by Byron G. Rogers.
I think. Okay. Who was that? God, I can't remember now.
Okay, I
That's just sad.
could. Let's look at the 70s.
Yeah, it would have been.
James McKevitt. He was the last Republican to hold the 1st District, and he was defeated by Patty Schroeder.
Oh yeah, I remember Schroeder. Yeah.
And then there was William Armstrong and Peter Kugovsek and Timothy Worth Yep. So,
Let me check and see if this was. That's the Senate. Let me see. I'm going to the House of Representatives. There we go.
well, Carlos wants to know what we think about the national debt being over $23 trillion. Well, here's the deal. When it gets to be where our spending exceeds our revenue by a certain percentage, then we have something to worry about. A good guy to follow up on that is Mike Rosen. He's got a great book out that breaks down uh, government spending and everything. Go look him up and get his book. I've got it, but I don't have it with me right now. But yeah, I'm worried about the national debt. Uh, but if you compare that to our GDP and how many trillions of dollars that is producing, as long as it doesn't exceed a certain percentage of the GDP, then I'll really start to worry. And I'm worrying that
Yeah.
our spending is starting to reach that magic number to where
Right.
we'll have to start worrying about that and reining. And one of the things that we need to do is we need a balanced budget amendment. Uh,
Oh,
be,
absolutely. Yeah, we should have had that. We have, we have that in Oklahoma. Okay, we
yeah,
have a
well, every state has that.
line item.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they didn't used to, but we do have. We didn't used to have one,
Oh,
but now we do, and it's real simple.
you
When that
can't
comes out,
spend any
and we
more
also
than
have,
your revenues. Yeah.
yeah,
You
and not
can't
only
print
that,
money. Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
but we can't borrow it either.
Yeah.
That's the difference here in Oklahoma, is
Uh-huh.
and not only that, if we have X amount of income in, and we make cuts backs because we're not allowed. Here's the other thing: they can't raise taxes without it going to a vote.
Yeah, same here in Colorado.
So it has to be voted upon before they can raise any new.
Mm.
They can they can move things around a little bit, but they can't change
Yeah,
they can't add a new tax
that's
without.
right.
And that was the thing. We had a lot of, and I'll tick off a lot of teachers this way, but we had a bunch of teachers that were oh
Yeah,
whinging because they weren't getting enough and they weren't getting this and they went on strike because
right.
it's real simple. There were cutbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Our tax revenue dropped, and it's now picking up. But we had all this. Uh, we had all of this cutbacks that we had to do, and they
Right.
did all this, and they went on strike and everything, and they thought, okay, we're going to really show how bad this Republican governor and Congress is here in
Right.
Oklahoma, is because we're going to get him out of office. And there's some people that I had a lot of, that I'm acquainted with that, of course, their parents were teachers and stuff,
Right.
and it really come down to the fact that it was the teachers union from out of the state flexing their muscles, you know, and this it also goes back to what you touched on about education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have this, and blame that on George W. because that No Child Left Behind
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah.
All that is a way to teach kids how to take tests, not how to actually learn anything.
Right.
They're trained to take a test. Hey, they've been doing that to monkeys for years.
Right.
They can teach monkeys how to push a button all the time. That's what they're doing these kids. But then when they get into
Right.
when they actually get into the
The real
real
world.
world,
Yep.
yeah, they can't. They don't know anything. That's why I'm a big supporter of trade schools,
Yep.
or
Yep.
Botex.
I am as
Teach these
well.
kids, teach these kids how to do something.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
if they could get a job besides McDonald's, they wouldn't be standing out on the corner with the
Right.
Antifa bunch complaining, "We can't get a job." Well, get a
Yeah, and
haircut,
you're
clean
not
yourself
racking
up,
up a huge debt, and you'll gain a
right?
skill that you can use right away when you finish school, because the demand for trade skills is so high. We don't have enough
Yeah,
skilled workers to fill those jobs. So,
yeah.
and that's why
I s-
their salaries are increasing, because we gotta raise the salaries so we could get good quality workers to fill those jobs. Hmm.
yeah. Hey, two things. One is this last comment that Carlos says there is they
Right.
train children to take tests so they can be funded for the next year, following year. Children don't really learn a concept at all. Learn concept at all.
Right.
Uh, he's glad we homeschool there's his son for the first through eighth grade. Yeah. The other thing is oh, I did it again. Uh, that burn it. I'm gonna have to start remembering these points and just saying one I think of, because it was a good one too.
Right.
Uh,
Well, and I wanted to touch on something else that Carlos said about the debt ceiling. Is also the United States, the federal government can issue treasury bills, and that's how they uh, earn income that way. So to fund a lot of other than taxes, that is one way they could get revenue. Yeah, that's good, Lloyd. You gotta write these things
well,
down
he
before
he
the
was saying I
show.
need a piece of paper and pencil, but
There
problem
you
is I
go.
don't have a piece of paper handy.
Uh, yeah, you
I need to
need
write it
something
down.
like
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I
They
think they
have
call them.
these in
Yeah,
stores. It's called
yeah.
a
I I
notepad, and they have them in
I've
different
heard of
sizes
those.
too.
Yeah,
They even
yeah.
have, they
I
have
got too
these
much.
little guys too. These are really handy,
Yeah.
especially
Come to
put
think of
it
it.
right next to your nightstand there. And sometimes that's how I got a lot of my jokes back in the comedy days. I'll wake up and I'll go, oh wow, that's funny, and I'll grab a notepad and I'll write down the joke while it's fresh in my mind. Otherwise, if I go back to sleep, I won't remember what the joke was the next day. So anyway, yeah, these are
This is off
handy,
topic
and
for.
I always try to, like, before the show, I'll put topics that we're going to talk about on my Arts Place
Right,
Facebook
right.
page, and also on uh, the live stream too, where I'll
Yeah.
have the number. I think we're on show number 18 right now.
You
So
know, I went back to look and see how many Grumpy Vlogger live streams I've done. I can't. I'm going to have to go back and count them because there's too many of them. But this is sort of touching on what I was looking for to see if I had uh, in my desk here, because I just reoccupied this office this year
right.
after being a storage room for so long. And I thought, well, I think I got to know, how much of a pack rat am I? This
Oh
is an
boy.
owner's manual for an LG flip phone, and
Wow. Oh
it's not.
man.
Look,
Look
it's
how
not
thick
even been
that is.
opened.
Oh,
It's still sealed.
oh boy. Well,
I
you'll
looked on
need
there.
that for when you're on Ken's show. You could say, "Hey Dana, look at this.
Yeah,
Take the
there you
wrapper
go.
off."
I mean, off of a. Yeah, that's been. God, when was the last time I seen I haven't had this phone for It's a flip phone. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't remember the last time I had an LG flip phone.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
I'm sitting there like, oh my
My
God.
first phone was a flip phone. It was a Kyocera flip phone,
Right.
and that was
And the
back in
copies of Windows XP.
oh boy. Well, when I moved out of
Had to throw crap out.
uh, my sister's house, I threw away so much crap. I had like, yeah, Vista, Windows Vista, and oh boy.
Yeah,
Anyway, let's
yeah.
get back to politics here.
Sorry about that.
So
I
we kind of
digressed.
diverged off to. So let's talk
Yeah,
about the Gang of Four, which Trump's been
yeah.
really getting after. Okay, and the Gang of Four, who are they? They are AOC, which is Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, Elania Presley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. And these are the outspoken Democrats that are out there, especially the latter two, which are both Muslim and anti-Israel. This is the thing that I don't get is how anybody who could spew as much, how I say, anti-Semitic venom, how they would get elected into office. It's just beyond me.
Well,
You'd think that the Jewish Democrats would say, "Oh, I can't. Oh, we can't have that." But they vote for him anyway because, well, they got that D next to their name. And
yeah, yeah. It's that's the problem. People are no longer voting for values. They're voting for strictly a party.
right,
And it used to be I could occasionally look at the Democratic side of the ticket and say, okay, that's a person that I would vote for, but because the way the balance of power works in the United States government right now, I just can't do it. But yeah,
yeah,
these four people, one, Arcasia, AOC,
AOC,
she needs to have her little butt spanked and sent back to the bar to go do a job. She
right,
is absolutely a clueless twit.
yeah.
And so far, her little bill about saying bad things about Congress people,
Oh,
which I think,
that
don't they
was a
protect that
different
under the
person.
First Amendment?
Yeah, that was
Oh, was that a different person?
Frederica
Oh,
Waters or
right.
Mitchell down there in Florida.
Yeah,
That black
yeah.
lady that likes to wear those uh,
That's right.
bedazzled
Well, either
cowboy
way,
hats.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
fortunately, that didn't get in ground because I can still say that she, she's a. Here's the thing. She's a highly educated. Well, there you go. That probably just answered everything right there. She went to a modern college, but she really was a smart person. She did. If you read what she did, as a young person, she was highly intellectual. She won a big science fair project dealing with nuclear power and stuff like that. I mean, this is from a 14-year-old, and then she grew up to be this spewing mouth of stupidity.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
and
and you
I
know what these four women all have in common?
what's that?
They were part of that group. Oh, we just talked about it a couple weeks ago. Starts with an E.
Oh yeah. That group of
Emerge.
empowered women,
Yep.
emerge. Yeah, emerge.
Yep.
Yes,
They're
yes.
all,
Yeah,
you know, they all came out of that group, and they train them to be this way. So, and that's what's scary. And but, however,
yeah.
this is the one thing. These four ladies probably gave the Republican Party the biggest gift of them all for taking back the House in 2020 is whoever the Democrat opponent is, All they have to do is show these ladies and talk about the crap that they spew, and they say, this is the
Yeah.
face of the Democrat Party. Do you want to vote for
Carlos,
this person? She comes from those
yeah,
same people.
Carlos
She
says that
won't
AOC is
refute
a
any, or they won't refute what these ladies say. They won't even
right.
refute what Omar said. And it's just
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what's going to happen when Nancy runs for a re-election in her own place, and she actually she actually got her butt spanked in front of everybody in the. She's the Speaker of the House, and she got put in timeout.
yeah.
How bad do you got to be put in timeout when you're in charge? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
when did the excuse my language, but when did the damn kids take over?
Yeah.
This is the problem. And you're right, Carlos. It's very possible to be smart and intellectual knucklehead. Right here.
That's true. That's true.
I'm one of the worst. My wife says I'm a knucklehead all the time, but I may talk like a hillbilly, but that's only because I live in Oklahoma. But I'm very well read. The only problem is now is I'm getting old.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and what this whole thing about what he wrote is racism. Go back and read the original tweet. They
Right.
left out over half of it. He said, "If you ladies that came here from another country are not happy with our government, go back, fix where you came from, fix your own country, and then come back and show us how it's done."
Yep. Yep.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
They left all that out.
Yep.
And,
They wanted anything he says is going to be racist. So, and this is
Yeah.
what gets me. One of my conservative friends on Facebook mentioned that, and then one of our libertarian guys, what Jimmy said was, I don't see anything racist here, and Isaiah Hess, who's the libertarian, he says, you haven't looked deep enough. I'm like, oh, really? You gotta be kidding me. Because this guy, a libertarian, he's a never Trumper. He doesn't like anything that Trump does. Oh, tariffs! Oh my God, the world's going to end, and yet the economy is just chugging right along. We're doing fantastic, and guess what? Jobs are coming back to this country. Manufacturing is coming back. So, I mean, it's all in how you look at it. And plus, we're trying to balance things out with China, because China's got this big advantage where they pretty much have slave labor over there.
They do.
And they could put out all these products and flood our markets, and that's why we don't make things here anymore, because our minimum wage has gone up and up and up, and it's just driving a lot of these companies to go overseas. And another thing, unions too have driven a lot of companies either overseas or out of business.
Yeah, this point right here while I'm thinking about it.
All right.
I watched a thing the other night. It was a video, and it was I don't remember which state it was. It was one of the southern states, and they passed a law that law enforcement will and can detain somebody they suspect of being an illegal immigrant, and companies are required to verify through the e-verification program of the federal government that the people they're hiring are legal immigrants. And of course, that had as soon as it went into effect, all the immigrants left. I mean, they were out of there because they were scared
illegal
to get caught.
immigrants.
So
Lloyd.
illegal immigrants. You
gotta make the distinction.
But then, yes, you're right. but all the illegal immigrants left. Okay, now they're talking in this, about how the farmers are talking about how bad it is because they can't bring in their crops because there's nobody to harvest them. Well, you know something? There are people. Here's the reason the illegal immigrants are here. Is because the people that we got people on welfare
Right.
that are perfectly able to work, but they choose not to because it's easier to get a welfare, a food
Right.
stamp.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, I can say this. My dad picked cotton. Uh, I mean, my grandma and grandpa, they picked cotton. My grandfather was an indentured servant to the guy who would become his father-in-law, working on the cotton farms. And after they got married and they had kids, the baby sister rode on the end of the tow sack. They put the cotton sack over her, and she, my aunt was drug on the back and my grandmother would sit there and pick the cotton and throw it in that sack, dragging a kid behind her.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in case you guys haven't noticed, my skin's a little pale.
Yeah.
But you know something? That's the problem. Until we get people that are willing to do something besides get, like I like to use as an example here in Muskogee, we have a place, it's Georgia Pacific Paper,
Right.
and they make, excuse the language, but they make butt wipe paper,
Yeah.
and they get paid $24 an hour,
Oh boy.
and then they get double and triple time. Sometimes on one, like say if the 4th of July falls on a Monday,
Right.
they can earn a week and a half worth of wages if that's their week to
Wow.
work, because they work the way they work rotation. They can
Right.
work 3 days, and they can earn a week and a half's worth of wages in those 3
Wow.
days.
I need to work there.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's one of the most sought after places here in Muskogee. Everybody
Right.
wanted to work there because they pay the best, and they're not union.
Yeah.
They're not even a union.
Yeah, if it was a union, it'd be even more costly, and the paper mill would have gone out of business. So let's
He
go
said, is it
into
possible to
our
raise the audio?
last topic, which is recall petitions, and it looks like the recall of Governor Polis looks like it's either going to be on the ballot or it is very close to having enough signatures to get on the ballot, which will be nice. And then there
Now,
are a couple of state senators that it looks like their recall is going to be on the ballot this November, and that is Brittany Pedersen and Leroy Garcia. And so if they both get recalled, that shifts the balance of power in the state Senate back to the Republicans, which will be good. And
right,
that
right.
Brittany Pedersen is also a graduate of Emerge, which I found out.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
was a state representative, and when this seat was open because of term limits here in Colorado, you could serve 4 state representative terms, that's 2 years each, or 2 4-year terms in the Senate.
Right, yeah.
And other ballots that have made the or other petitions that have made the ballot are the national popular vote. Well, that passed the assembly here in Colorado, and the governor signed it. So now we're part of a compact to allot all of our votes by popular vote. So this ballot measure will overturned that, which is good.
Okay.
Hmm.
So that when the electoral college is being used the way it's supposed to be used, then, right?
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
will revert
Okay.
back to the original way it was intended.
Right.
So,
Right.
a couple recalls that have been stopped. I think I mentioned this before. The one for State Senator Tom Sullivan, that's been discontinued. And the other one for Galindo up in Greeley, that ended because she resigned due to sexual misconduct, and she's been replaced by another Democrat to serve the rest of her
She
term.
sh- she resigned for sexual misconduct.
Yes, she's a lesbian,
Oh,
and she
well,
was
okay.
accused of sexual harassment or sexual assault or something, and it was not looking good for her. So rather
Well,
than
all
face
I
a
can say is,
recall and get replaced
right.
with a Republican, she decided to resign.
All I can say is that I'm glad that it's an equal opportunity. Sexual harassment is equal opportunity, or sexual misconduct
Yeah.
happens to the straights, the lesbians, the gays, the confused, or whatever else you
Yeah.
are. And oh, I got to tell you this. I
Okay.
saw two things, real quick. I saw a cartoon today, and it was a picture of a guy who was hunting with his bow, and he was hunting a buck. Okay, and he'd shot the buck. The buck had arrows sticking out of his backside. He's standing with his hands on his hips, and the game warden's writing him a ticket. And he says the problem is he's identifying himself as a doe this year.
That's funny.
And the other thing, uh, uh, he back from this guy said he was in the union once. We touched on that about being union. He says, and they got onto him for working too fast because they don't. They wanted him to slow down because
Right.
union mentality is not good for work ethic. Well, I was a non-union worker as an insulator in Colorado in high school,
Right.
and back in those days, this was in the 70s, early 70s, just before I went into service. In those days, the union, the insulators union or the asbestos workers union, we had a standard we had to meet. I mean, it was to the point that where two pieces of tubed insulation came together, every third one, you had to put like a
O-ring?
silicone sealant on it,
Oh,
you know, on the end where they meet up, okay?
right.
And so when these tubes meet up, and there was, you know, they snap together pieces of fiberglass and they snap around it. They're like on, you see them in industrial pipes, okay? These
Right.
preformed ones, okay? Well, whenever one of these met on every single one, you put a flap around it and then you staple it down. You had to put 3 staples, not 1, not 2, but 3, not 4 either. So you had to pay attention to what you were doing every time you joined these together. And every third one, you had to put this stuff around it so that it kept it from, if you get a tear in one of these, it'll only sweat so far instead of sweating down the whole 200-foot line. It'll stop at that barrier,
Right.
which means that we were actually putting out work that was quality. They wanted to, you know, they wanted precise, precision work.
Mm-hmm.
Unions aren't like that now, you know,
Nope.
but that was in a day when, you know, United Auto Workers were proud of the cars. You know, that's when cars were American made and they were strong built.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
anyways,
right.
I'd written that down so I wouldn't forget.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. Well, we covered anything. You have any final thoughts, Lloyd?
No, I'm just blown away by these yells of racism and stuff against Donald Trump and anti-immigration and stuff like that. You know, people need to start educating themselves and paying attention what's in the tweets. Don't read what the news says. Read
Right.
it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and I agree with that. I gotten to the point where I just stopped watching network and local news because I'm tired of listening to a lot of garbage, a lot of BS that I know is not true, and it's like, but these people get away with it, and it's like, and that's why a lot of these local news outlets, especially newspapers, they're losing money and they're letting people go, and they're practically in a skeleton crew right now just to keep
Yeah.
afloat. The Denver Post is the only paper here in Denver. Well, there's a new paper. It's not really a paper. It's called the Colorado Sun, and all it is, it's a bunch of people that got fired from the Denver Post, and it's still a liberal news outlet. And they
Yeah.
occasionally
Yeah.
have a conservative on there, but it's overwhelmingly liberal. So it's like, why are you, why are you starting up a newspaper that's spewing out the same crap as the paper
Right.
that's
Right.
about to go
Yeah.
toes up?
Yeah. Carlos says one thing, you need to watch news from other countries, and as far as watching the news, the only reason I'll ever watch local news is if you're in a place like Oklahoma when we have tornadoes
Yeah,
and destructive weather like that.
yeah,
But even
same here.
then,
Hmm.
these are apps. You can
Right.
get, you can use these to get your weather updates.
Yeah,
Uh,
and don't
there's a lot
accidentally
of other
hit the
ways.
fart app.
Yeah, you just know never know what'll happen.
Yeah.
Man, I'm getting bad. I'm getting known for that. It's just almost like people wonder what's wrong with me if I don't hit at least once during a show. Even on Greg's show now, he half expects it. It's like,
Right.
and I've got a bad reputation. Anyways, that's all I had to say. But
All
yeah,
right.
uh,
Well, great. We did a long show. We got about an hour and 20 minutes. That's awesome. So thank you as always for being here, and we'll have more great topics next week. And so thanks to you all in the chat. Thanks for stopping by. You have a great day, and we'll see you all next week. Bye bye.
don't forget Mel is coming on
Yeah,
30
he's
minutes
on
early.
early tonight. Yeah,
He's on at 7 o'clock, and he's got some people you want to listen to. You
cool.
know, especially if you're a live streamer and you want to learn some things. He's got one person on there that you want to hear. So,
All
just
right,
a
we'll do.
reminder, and I'm on Mondays 7 o'clock.
Okay, cool. All right, see you then, and everybody have a great week. Bye bye.